The Grand Hall of the Trade Council was the largest building in the known galaxy. It stretched across 3 kilometers of beautiful crystal walls and floors. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. Giant screens floated in the air, showing live images from 1,000 different worlds. Every important species in the galaxy sent their best traders and leaders to this place once every year. Today was the opening day of the annual Commerce Summit. This was where the rich got richer, where the powerful made deals that affected billions of lives, where the weak learned very quickly that they did not matter. Ships of all shapes and sizes had been arriving for days. They came in their massive war cruisers, their 8-foot-tall warriors stomping through the halls like they owned everything. They floated on gravity platforms, their jellyfish-like bodies glowing with soft light. The hosts of this grand event walked with their heads held high. Their shimmering green scales caught the light as they greeted guests and reminded everyone who was in charge. At the very back of the Grand Hall, almost completely hidden behind all these important aliens, sat 2 humans. Was a woman of 32 years. She had simple dark hair pulled back in a neat knot. She wore a plain gray uniform with no decorations or medals. Her face was calm and patient, like someone who had learned long ago that getting angry solved nothing. Beside her sat a man of similar age. He was looking at a small computer pad in his hands, reading something quietly. His expression showed nothing at all. They were the entire human delegation. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 20 years ago. In galactic terms, humanity was like a baby who had just learned to walk. They had no powerful weapons. They owned no valuable planets. Their technology was laughably simple compared to species who had been traveling the stars for millions of years. The only things humans brought to trade were food from their farms and what they called cultural exports: movies, music, books, and art. Most aliens thought this was a joke. The opening ceremony began with a high-ranking official stepping onto the main stage. He was 7 feet tall with scales that shimmered like liquid metal. His voice boomed through the hall, translated instantly into every language by tiny devices in everyone's ears. "Welcome, honored guests, to the 500th Annual Commerce Summit," announced. "We gather here as the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. We are the builders of empires, the masters of technology, the shapers of the future." The crowd cheered, they stomped their feet, they flashed bright colors of approval. His eyes swept across the hall, and then they stopped. He had noticed the 2 small figures sitting in the very back, barely visible behind the massive merchants. A smile spread across his face. It was not a kind smile. "I see we have some special guests today," said, his voice dripping with amusement. "The humans have honored us with their presence. Tell me, little ones, what have you brought to trade this year? More of your primitive entertainment, more of your vegetables." Laughter filled the grand hall. Thousands of aliens turned to look at the 2 humans in the back. They made harsh barking sounds that passed for laughter in their culture. Even the usually emotionless pulsed with soft light that meant they found something funny. Simply smiled politely. She bowed her head slightly in acknowledgement. She said nothing. Did not even look up from his computer pad. He kept reading as if nothing had happened. This seemed to annoy. He was used to weak species trembling when he spoke to them. He was used to fear and desperate attempts to please him. The humans showed neither. "Nothing to say," pressed, his voice getting a little harder. "No defense of your primitive world, no begging for better treatment." Still the humans remained silent, kept her polite smile, kept reading. "Perhaps this is for the best," continued, turning back to the main crowd. "The humans have finally learned where they belong, in the back, quiet, watching their betters conduct real business. They should be grateful we even allow them in this hall." More laughter, more stomping, more flashing lights of approval. No one in that massive hall noticed something strange. No one saw that the darkness behind the 2 humans seemed deeper than it should be. No one observed that the shadows in that corner did not move quite right. No one felt the ancient presence that had been sitting in perfect stillness for hours, watching everything with patient, calculating eyes. Something was there, something vast, something old beyond measure. And it was listening very carefully to how the galaxy treated its human friends. The ceremony continued. Deals were announced. Alliances were celebrated. The humans in the back were quickly forgotten, dismissed as unimportant as they had been dismissed at every summit for the past 15 years. Leaned slightly toward. "They are louder this year," she whispered. Finally looked up from his pad. His eyes were calm, almost sleepy. "Let them laugh," he said quietly. "They will learn." When? Soon enough. Behind them, in the impossible darkness, something that had existed before the first star was born slowly opened its eyes. It had been watching. It had been patient. And it had decided, long ago, that these strange little creatures called humans were worth protecting. The galaxy just did not know it yet. The first day of the summit passed slowly for him. They watched as deals worth trillions of credits were made between the powerful species. They watched as trade routes were divided up like pieces of a cake. They watched as everyone pretended they did not exist. When the main ceremonies ended, the real business began. Delegates broke into smaller groups. They gathered in private rooms and quiet corners to make the deals that really mattered. This was where fortunes were made. This was where the future of entire planets was decided. Decided to try her luck. She stood up from her seat in the back and walked toward the minerals exchange delegation. These were the aliens who controlled the trade of rare metals and crystals. Earth needed these materials badly. Their factories and hospitals and ships all required things that could not be found on their home world. She walked with her head held high. Her steps were confident but not aggressive. She had practiced this walk many times. It was the walk of someone who wanted to be seen as an equal, not a threat. She almost reached the delegation before a massive hand grabbed her shoulder. The guard was nearly 3 times her size. His skin was rough like stone. His eyes were small and mean. When he spoke, his breath smelled like rotting meat. "Where do you think you are going, little creature?" the guard growled. "I wish to speak with the minerals exchange about a trade agreement," said calmly. "Earth is prepared to offer." "Earth has nothing we want," the guard cut her off. "Your species digs in dirt and makes silly pictures. You have nothing of value. Return to your seat before I remove you from this hall entirely." Did not move. She kept her eyes fixed on the minerals exchange delegates behind the guard. They were watching. Some of them were smiling. "Our agricultural technology could help feed 3 of your colony worlds," said, her voice still calm. "We have done the research. Your crops are failing because of soil problems we solved 200 years ago. We could help you." The guard leaned down until his face was inches from hers. "We do not need help from insects. Now leave." A gentle hand touched his elbow, had appeared beside her, silent as always. "Come," he said quietly. "It is fine, we expected this." They turned to walk away, but a new voice stopped them. "Expected what exactly?" The speaker was a trader named. His body was shaped like a giant jellyfish, floating on a personal gravity platform. His transparent flesh glowed with colors that shifted as he spoke. Right now, those colors showed amusement and contempt. "Expected to be treated like the primitives you are," continued, floating closer. "Your planet was still burning dead plants for energy while we were mapping the spaces between galaxies. Your ancestors were hitting each other with sticks while ours were building wonders that still stand today. You should be grateful we even allow you to breathe the same air as us." Other delegates had noticed the confrontation. They gathered around, sensing entertainment. A crowd formed quickly. The humans were surrounded by aliens 3 and 4 times their size. A merchant pushed through the crowd. His scales were a deep blue, marking him as someone of high status. He reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a single credit chip. With a casual flick of his wrist, He tossed it at its feet. "There," the merchant said with a cruel smile. "That should be enough to buy passage back to your little mud ball. Consider it charity. Consider it my good deed for the cycle." The crowd laughed. Someone made a comment about humans being good only for cleaning floors. Someone else suggested they should perform tricks for food like trained animals. Did not bend down to pick up the credit chip. She did not flinch. She did not show any emotion at all. She simply stood there, looking at with an expression that only he could read. Something passed between them, a silent question, a silent answer. Slowly put away his computer pad. For the first time since arriving at the summit, he looked directly at the aliens around him. His eyes were not angry. They were not scared. They held something else entirely, something that looked almost like pity. "You are right," said his voice even and clear. "Humanity is young. We have only been among the stars for 20 years. We have no powerful weapons. We own no valuable territory. Our technology is simple. We came here with almost nothing to offer." The crowd leaned in closer. They expected him to beg. They expected him to cry. They expected the weak human to finally break down and admit his worthlessness. "Almost nothing," repeated, "but not quite nothing." He turned around and looked behind him. He looked into the darkness at the very back of the grand hall, the darkness where the lights did not reach, the darkness where something massive had been sitting in perfect stillness since the summit began. Grandmother said softly, "I think it is time." And then the darkness moved. The first thing everyone noticed was the sound. It was not loud. It was not sharp. It was something deeper. Something that seemed to come from below the floor, from inside the walls, from the very bones of every living creature in the hall. It was a low rumble that made teeth hurt and hearts beat faster. Then came the eyes. They opened in the darkness like stars being born. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Each eye was larger than a warrior's entire body. They glowed with a soft golden light that seemed older than time itself. They looked out at the frozen crowd with an expression that was impossible to read. The creature began to unfold. It rose from behind the human delegation like a mountain coming to life. Its body did not make sense. It seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Parts of it were there, and then they were not there, and then they were somewhere else entirely. Looking at it directly made heads hurt. It was like trying to watch a shape that kept changing while staying the same. Tentacles of pure darkness stretched outward. They did not reflect any light. They seemed to be made of the empty space between stars. Wings spread across the ceiling, wings that sparkled with the light of captured galaxies, with colors that had no names in any language. The creature was vast beyond understanding. Its smallest movements caused the crystal walls to shake. Its mere presence made the air feel heavy and thick. The grand hall fell into complete silence. Thousands of aliens stood frozen in terror. Some had fallen to their knees. Some had fainted. The mighty warriors, who feared nothing in the known universe, trembled like children facing a nightmare. And then the creature spoke. Its voice did not come from any one place. It came from everywhere, from the walls, from the air, from inside every mind in the room. It was the sound of ancient things, the sound of patience beyond measure, the sound of something that had watched galaxies live and die like fireflies in the night. "Greetings," the creature said. "I am called Grandmother by my human friends. It has been a very long time since I have spoken to anyone but them." The official who had mocked the humans during the opening ceremony stumbled backward. His beautiful scales had turned pale gray with fear. His voice came out as a broken whisper. What is this thing?" Stepped forward. She showed no fear at all. She stood before this impossible creature as calmly as she would stand before a friend. "When humanity first reached beyond our home world," began, "we sent ships to explore our solar system. 23 years ago, one of those ships found something drifting in the cold darkness beyond the farthest planet. Something ancient, something sleeping, something that had been alone for longer than our entire species had existed. Continued the story. His voice was steady and clear. She was injured, dying slowly over millions of years. We did not know what she was. We did not know if she was friendly or dangerous. We only knew one thing for certain: she was alive and she was suffering. So we helped her, said simply. We brought her closer to our sun where it was warmer. We tried everything we could think of to heal her wounds. Our doctors and scientists worked for years, trying things that had never been tried before. We talked to her, added. Even before she could respond, we played her our music. We showed her our movies and our art. We read her our stories. We treated her like a guest, not a specimen to be studied. Grandmother's massive form settled lower, closer to the two humans. One of her tentacles, thinner than the others, almost gentle, reached down and brushed against his shoulder. The touch was lighter than a feather. They asked for nothing, grandmother said, and her voice now carried something that sounded almost like wonder. In all my long existence, traveling between galaxies, watching civilizations rise and fall, I had never encountered such behavior. I was a stranger. I could have been a threat. I was completely helpless, and these small, fragile creatures helped me anyway. The crowd remained frozen. No one dared to move. No one dared to breathe too loudly. They made me soup, grandmother continued. They did not know if I could eat it. They did not know if it would help, but they made it anyway because that is what they do when someone is sick. They played me music because they thought it might comfort me. A little girl named visited me every day after her school ended. She was 7 years old. She drew me pictures of flowers because she thought I seemed sad. Smiled at the memory. It was the first real emotion he had shown since arriving at the summit. Is 16 now. She still draws you flowers. I keep them all, grandmother said. Every single one. They are more precious to me than all the treasures of all the empires I have ever seen. The ancient being turned her countless eyes toward the crowd, toward the guard who had grabbed shoulder, toward and the merchant who had thrown a coin at her feet. And in those ancient eyes, something sharp began to form, something that looked very much like judgment. No one in the grand hall moved. The greatest warriors of the empire stood like statues. The brilliant minds of the floated silently, their usual glow dimmed to almost nothing. The proud had lost all their pride. Fear had taken its place. Grandmother's attention turned too. The official tried to step back, but his legs would not obey him. He felt something touching his mind, not painful, not violent, just present. It was like standing naked before something that could see every thought he had ever had, every secret he had ever kept, every cruel thing he had ever done. I know you, grandmother said, her voice soft but impossible to ignore. I know all of you. I have watched your civilizations for longer than you can imagine. I have seen what you call progress. I have seen what you call power. She paused. When she spoke again, her voice carried no anger. It carried something worse, disappointment. You mocked these humans for being young. You laughed at them for being weak. You threw coins at their feet like they were beggars asking for scraps. One of her massive eyes focused directly on the merchant who had done exactly that. The merchant fell to his knees, shaking. You called them primitive, worthless. You said they should be grateful to breathe the same air as you. The tentacles of darkness moved slowly through the crowd. They touched no one, but everyone felt their presence passing by. It was like being brushed by the shadow of death itself. Let me tell you what I see when I look at your great civilizations, grandmother continued. The empire built on the backs of 3 billion slaves from the Myra system. You worked them until they died, and then you found more. When there were no more to find, you bred them like animals. His face twisted with shame. These were old secrets, ancient history. No one spoke of such things anymore. The Dominion, I remember the singing worlds. 7 planets where life had developed beautiful music as its form of communication. Every creature on those worlds sang, from the smallest insect to the largest beast. They posed no threat to anyone. They had no weapons. they simply sang. She turned her eyes to the warriors. You burned those worlds because you wanted their minerals. 14 billion singing voices, silenced forever, because you were too lazy to mine asteroids instead. The warriors said nothing. Some of them had been taught to be proud of those conquests. Now that pride felt like poison in their hearts. The collective, your experiments on the lesser species, cutting apart living creatures to see how they worked, testing weapons on populations that could not fight back, all in the name of science, all in the name of progress. His glow had faded completely. His body hung limp on his gravity platform. I have watched 10,000 civilizations across this galaxy, grandmother said. I have seen empires that lasted for millions of years. I have seen technologies that could reshape reality itself. I have seen power beyond anything you can imagine. And in all that time, across all those countless worlds, I found the same thing again and again. The strong crushing the weak, the powerful taking from the helpless, cruelty justified by strength. She settled lower, her impossible form wrapping protectively around and like a parent sheltering children from a storm. And then I met humanity. Her voice changed, the hardness left it, something warmer took its place. They found me broken and dying. They had no reason to help me. They had every reason to fear me. I was strange beyond their understanding. I could have been a monster. I could have been a trap. Their leaders argued about what to do. Some wanted to destroy me before I became a threat. Some wanted to study me, to cut me open and learn my secrets. But the common people, the ordinary humans, they simply saw someone who was hurt. They did not care what I was. They did not care if I could give them anything in return. They saw suffering, and they wanted to make it stop. A sound came from grandmother. It took a moment for everyone to realize what it was. She was laughing, soft and gentle, like distant thunder on a summer night. The first human I truly spoke to was a janitor named. He cleaned the facility where they kept me. Every night he would sit beside me and tell me about his day. His wife was sick. His son was struggling in school. His back hurt from all the mopping. Such small problems, such small joys. And he shared them with me, a creature from beyond the stars, because he thought I might be lonely. The ancient being's eyes grew soft with memory. He asked me if I had any family. When I told him they were all gone, lost to time and distance, he said he was sorry. And he meant it. This tiny creature, whose entire existence was less than a blink of my eye, felt sorry for me. He brought me food his wife had cooked because he thought I should try human cooking at least once. Grandmother's voice grew firm again as she addressed the crowd. That is what humanity is. That is what you have been mocking. That is what you have been calling primitive and worthless. The capacity for kindness without expectation, compassion without calculation. They helped me when I was nothing, when I had nothing to offer, when I could have been their doom. That, she said, is worth more than all your empires combined. The summit never continued. How could it? How could anyone pretend that things were normal after what they had seen? The delegates left the grand hall in silence, their heads low, their pride broken. Ships departed within hours, carrying news of what had happened to every corner of the galaxy. The story spread faster than light itself. It traveled through communication networks and whispered conversations. It was told in the great halls of emperors and in the small homes of common people. Everyone heard about the quiet humans in the back of the grand hall. Everyone heard about what sat behind them. Within days, everything changed. Trade delegations that had ignored Earth for 20 years suddenly found reasons to visit. The Minerals Exchange, whose guard had grabbed shoulder, sent their most senior officials with formal apologies and generous contract offers. The Council, whose representative had thrown a coin at human feet, announced a full diplomatic relationship with Earth. They offered technology sharing, military protection, and seats on their highest councils. But the humans did not gloat. They did not demand revenge or punishment. They simply accepted the apologies, signed the fair contracts, and went about their business. This confused the aliens more than anything else. "Why do you not punish us?" asked during a private meeting. He had resigned from his position in shame. He was now just an ordinary trying to understand what had happened. "We treated you horribly. We laughed at you. We called you worthless. Why do you not use your new power against us?" Poured him a cup of tea. It was a human custom she had introduced to many alien visitors. Simple dried leaves in hot water, nothing special. Yet the aliens seemed fascinated by it. "What would that accomplish?" she asked. "Would hurting you make us better? Would revenge fix the past? Grandmother taught us many things, but the most important lesson was one we already knew. Kindness is not weakness. Forgiveness is not surrender. We can be strong without being cruel." Held the small cup in his massive scaled hands. The warmth spread through his fingers. Such a simple thing, such a human thing. "I do not understand your species," he admitted. Smiled. "That is okay. We are still learning to understand ourselves." On Earth, life continued mostly as it had before. Grandmother made no demands. She asked for no temples or worship. She did not want to rule or command. She simply wanted to stay with her friends. She wanted to watch more of their movies. She wanted to hear more of their music. She wanted to see what these strange, kind creatures would do next. She kept a small part of herself near the facility where she had first been found. The janitor who had talked to her every night still came to visit. His wife had recovered. His son had graduated from school. His back still hurt, but he said he was used to it. And the little girl who had drawn her flowers was now studying art at a university. She still brought new drawings every week. Grandmother displayed them all in a special space that existed partly in normal reality and partly somewhere else. Visitors to the facility often reported seeing impossible colors glowing in the corners of their vision. Those were flowers, shining in dimensions that human eyes could not quite see. A year after the summit, and were invited to address the Galactic Assembly. This was the highest governing body of all known civilizations. No human had ever spoken there before. The hall was even larger than the Grand Hall. Representatives from thousands of species filled every seat. But this time, there were no jokes about the humans. There was no laughter. There was only respectful silence as the two small figures walked to the central platform. Behind them, in a space that seemed larger on the inside than the outside, Grandmother settled in to watch. She had insisted on coming. She said she wanted to see her friends get the respect they deserved. Spoke first. His voice was calm and clear, just as it had always been. "Many of you now treat humanity differently. You offer us trade and friendship. You speak to us with respect. We appreciate this. But we want you to understand something important." He paused and looked out at the vast crowd. "We did not earn your respect by having a powerful friend. We did not become worthy of kindness because something strong protected us. We were always worthy. Every species is worthy. Every living creature deserves to be treated with basic dignity. That is what we believe. That is how we will always act." Stepped forward. Grandmother could leave tomorrow. She could disappear back into the void between galaxies, and if she did, we would not change. We would still offer help to those who need it. We would still treat strangers with kindness. We would still believe that compassion matters more than power. Grandmother's voice rippled through the hall, warm and proud. "This is why I stay. This is why I will always stay. Not because they need me, but because in all my endless years of existence, I have finally found something worth believing in." In the back of every galactic assembly from that day forward, there were always seats reserved for the human delegation. Good seats, respected seats, and behind those seats in comfortable shadows, something ancient and vast would settle in to listen, to watch, and to remember. No one ever mocked the quiet humans again. Not because they feared what sat behind them, but because they had finally learned what humanity had known all along. True strength was not measured in weapons or territory or ancient power. It was measured in how you treated those who could do nothing for you. And by that measure, the youngest species in the galaxy had always been the strongest of them all.